One time I bought a dog and then I sold him. Testing, testing. I bought a dog. I was one of those guys who bought a dog and then I sold him. I am part of the problem.
All right, welcome everyone. I'll call this meeting to order. It is 7 p.m. Thanks for joining us. Please stand with me and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Rory, will you call roll?
Yes. Councilmember Gettle,
Here.
Brown,
Here.
Robinson, here, Glover,
Here.
and Sperry.
Here. Okay, thank you. We're gonna hear from Chief Larson for the Unified Fire Report.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Always a pleasure to be with you. I just have a few things that I would like to share. First of all, legislative update, just quickly. The UFA Legislative Committee, we had a very busy February and first couple of weeks of March. Looking and tracking at several bills that have implications for the fire service, including EMS employees and the retirement system, funding for wildland fire mitigation work, continuing needs of behavioral health in fire, excuse me, and public safety. We also watched several bills related to fire and building codes, different ordinances and district operations. I'm happy to say that some of the bills that we were watching with regards to fire and life safety, the building and fire codes, we feel we landed in a pretty good spot this year. The legislators were very willing to work with us on several issues. The 2021 fire and building codes were adopted. Not a lot of change from the 28 edition, but we're able to move forward with those. Let's see, Recruit Camp 56 is ongoing. Their new recruits have just completed the fire dynamics and air management this week. We're approaching the 4th week of camp. The recruits are engaging in their new challenges with being this the first week of saw safety, learning how to use the chain and rescue saws. Captain's Academy is coming up in preparation for the next captain's promotional process in 2024. The Academy helps prepare candidates for taking leadership role of captain, which is a very critical role with UFA in serving our communities. Topics include leadership training, budgeting processes, government and community relations, and my personal favorite, fire prevention. I guess that's a bad fire prevention joke. I won't stick on that one. Captain strategy, tactics, and incident management. There will be 6 sessions held over 18 months. Our budget process continues. Thank you, Mariah, for helping me get into the mood of talking about our budget process. I'll be very brief on this one. The divisions and the assistant chiefs and directors are hard at work finalizing our individual budgets to be included in the overall UFA budget process. All the meetings with the budget committee of these divisions, meeting with the budget committee and the chief have occurred, and the presentation will be given to the board finance committee on April 10th, which is coming right up. And the full UFA board will review the budget on May 16th and a final approval set for June 20th. We shared a safety message. Laura has posted that on your social media websites. It's on carbon monoxide poisoning. With the significant snow we've had and potential for more significant snow, we're asking that residents ensure their appliance vents in their homes have a clear area around them to avoid the dangers of carbon monoxide poisoning. We've also listed, you can check it out on the websites, the signs and symptoms of carbon monoxide poisoning and what to do should anyone experience those. A very good message. And real quickly, I just wanted to share something that your fire crews participate in, other than response to the emergency calls that they go on day in and day out. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to go with your station 125 and 126 to one of your businesses here in the community that have a significant amount of petroleum products that they store and dispense. And it was very interesting to meet there with their safety manager and learn about the vast amount of resources they put into fire prevention equipment to prevent a hazard from happening, their safety measures that they had in place, and then to see our fire crews work with this individual in asking questions so that the crew could respond very quickly, very effectively to help mitigate an incident from becoming worse should something happen. So your crews are out visiting these places and others, developing a cohesive team, I think, with the business community. And it was just another maybe snapshot of something that the crews are out doing in the service of your community to help keep the citizens safe. So I just wanted to share that with you real quickly. And that's all I have for my report. Are there any questions for me? Okay.
Not saying any.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. All right, and we'll invite the Arts Council to come up for your presentation. Just a reminder to our council members that we have been asking each grant recipient to come and present to us. That's why we had the CBC here a few council meetings ago, and we'll have the Boys and Girls Club here at our next council meeting. So, and then Wade, if you just say your name for the record.
Well, it sounds like an interrogation. You say your name for the record. Wade Walker, I'm the chairman of the Midvale Arts Council and happy to be here tonight. And with me also on the Arts Council Board of Directors is Stephanie Johnson, our treasurer. And Bryant Brown is also on the Arts Council Board as a city council representative. But Stephanie and I were just talking, and I've been involved with the Arts Council for 29 years now, and she's been involved for 23 years. So we've been involved with the arts here in the city for a long time. And we're happy to be here tonight to express our appreciation, first of all, to the city council and mayor and city staff for their support of the arts here in Midvale. And we hope that we're contributing to the quality of life here and for residents to enjoy the arts offerings that we have. So we prepared just a brief little presentation to talk about what we do, I guess, brag a little bit about it. So is this where do I point it?
Just wherever you use.
Right there. All right. So the first item is I'm just going to go through some of the things that we sponsor. We sponsor our free concert Fridays throughout the summer in the city park. Last year we did 8 concerts and had over 2,000 attendees. And we offer those free of charge to residents. So we think it's a great opportunity to serve the residents here and provide some quality arts entertainment. Another thing that we do is 3 theater productions a year. These are pictures from our most recent 3 productions, Forever Plaid, A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder, and then one that just closed this last Saturday, our youth production, a Broadway review of Pure Imagination. And through those 3 productions, we had about 1,000 attendees. We offer tickets at low cost, and we give Midvale residents a discount since the city helps fund these productions. So anyway, those are at the Midvale Performing Arts Center just down the street there. We appreciate the opportunity to put on those productions, and we've had a lot of fun with those, getting back from the pandemic and putting on live theater productions again. We also are involved with Harvest Days activities. We sponsor the Hall of Honors. Last year, we inducted Kane Loader in the Midvale Historical Society and Museum. And we're, if you've been to the Midvale Performing Arts Center, on the back wall of the theater are all the plaques over the years from 1985 on that for the Hall of Honors inductees. Also, in conjunction with Harvest Days, we sponsor a visual arts contest and also a literary arts contest. Our visual arts contest this past year, we had 30 plus local artists that exhibited art, and our literary contest, we're on our second year of that last year, and it's a growing group of participants. And so again, some various offerings that we get to showcase the different talents of Midvale residents. One thing that we wanted to show off, and I'm sure Dustin will be happy with this, is the Midvale Performing Arts Center. This past year, we added the exterior lights. You've all seen that older picture of the building from several years ago at Christmas time with the lights. And so this is our new lighting setup. The tree, unfortunately, I took this picture when the tree wasn't lit, but it's up there. They're LED lights. We have the ability to change the colors with the holidays and the different productions. And we think that ties in really nicely with the Main Street revitalization efforts that are going on there on the corner of that, and adding some light and some vibrancy and color to Main Street. So we appreciate the funding that we get from the city. The bulk of our funding does come from the city. We also get funding from the Zoo Arts and Parks organization, which affiliated with the National Endowment for the Arts, and also through the Utah Division of Arts and Museums. So we have various funding sources that we take advantage of. And it's important to us because our costs continue to increase. The cost of putting on concerts continues to increase each year. Our cost of putting on productions increases, a lot of that due to just trying to compete with surrounding communities to hire production staff, directors, and choreographers and so forth. But we appreciate the funding that the city does provide, and thank you for that. And we'll continue this next year to offer the same offerings that we've had the past several years. We'll continue to offer the free concerts, the theater productions, the visual and literary art contests, and the Hall of Honors. And we also continue to be involved with the Midvale Main Street Business Alliance, as well as the RDA Advisory Board on art projects. We'll continue to be involved in those as much as we can. We have a few different partners that rent the Performing Arts Center from us. We have Titus Productions, which is a local theater group, a small group that write some of their own productions, but also put on other productions, and they rent the building from us. We also, the Cultural Arts Society of West Jordan, their Sugar House Players put on 3 productions a year in our building because they don't have a space, and they're always very jealous that Midvale has such a great space for theater. And so I think that that's a tribute to the arts, the buildup of the arts that we've had over the years. Another partner is Quick Wits Comedy. It's a resident improv troupe that performs most every Friday night there at the building. And they also sponsor the Wasatch Improv Festival, which is the other logo that you see in there. And I think that that's kind of a lot of people don't know about it. It's kind of an understated festival, but I think that that's one that has the potential, as cities get known for certain things, Midway with Swiss Days and different things, that this could really be something that the Midvale becomes very well known for, is this improv festival. They have troops from all over the country, a couple of international troops. This last year, they had for the first time a Spanish speaking troupe that came in for the improv festival. And so a great opportunity there to partner with them, and something that I think, over time could really become quite notable for the city, and something that could really be a strong partnership there as well. So finally, we just want to give a few shout outs and thanks to different people. Bryant, of course, sits on our board, but Nate Rockwood also attends our board meetings, and we appreciate his support and him keeping us informed of what's happening in the city, and hopefully vice versa, that he shares some of the stuff that we're doing. Public Works, Levi and Glenn and everyone has been very supportive. We really appreciate the facilities request portal that we're able to input requests to get things fixed, and they jump on those things, and we appreciate that. And the IT department as well has been helpful in helping us solve some of our connectivity issues. So again, we're grateful for all the support that the city has shown the Arts Council, and hope that in turn, that we're providing a valuable service back to the city and the residents of the city. And we have regular communications with Nate and Matt about things that we can improve and do better. But happy to answer any questions you guys have about the Arts Council or any of the activities that we're doing. If there's any special lighting requests for the building, we're happy to take those.
Questions, comments? Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
I ask them questions all the time.
Yeah. Well, I just thank you for what you do as well. Couple quick questions. One is when do you do the literary event? When's that one?
So this past year we did it in September, but this upcoming year we're going to do it in July. So that we can announce the winners at the Hall of Honors Visual Art Contest at the same time that we can, because this past year we announced it online, but it wasn't as visible as I think that if we do it before Harvest Days and then announce the winners at Harvest Days. But we publish the winning pieces on our website, and we've had some very, very fun and interesting entries in that. We typically give them a word or a cue to use, and then they either have a week or 24 hours to write a story or a poem about that. And it's quite entertaining, and it shows a lot of creativity on these writers' parts.
Did it's been since last July, but last August. But I was going to say that art at the Hall of Honors was phenomenal this last year too. And I think a lot of people who were there for the first time were pretty impressed by that selection of art that was there. The last question is, how long were you in the makeup chair to put on that red jacket and the mustache and no?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That was that was a fun show. I got to play, 9 different characters and lots of quick costume changes. And so, a vested interest to be involved in the arts because I love performing and things. But yeah, thank you for noticing that was me. I tried to hide it, but.
You guys have a schedule that you're gonna use as far as the lighting goes? Cause I normally ask Bryant about that, like, hey, why is it this color this time or something
Yeah.
like that? I'm just curious, like, how you guys choose the color. Like I would assume March, you might do green for St. Patrick's Day or something like that.
Right. So some of it we tie into the holidays. Some of it ties into the productions that are currently at the theater. Like our youth production that we just finished was kind of a blue and green theme. So right now the lights around the building are alternating blue and green. So we tie it into productions. We let the groups that rent from us as well say, hey, if they want a specific color, we'll do that. But otherwise we kind of go off holidays and different things. I will say that occasionally when the controller loses connection to our Wi-Fi and our settings, it just defaults to an orange
Something, yeah.
color, red color or something. And so when we see that, we try to jump on it and get it back. But yeah, if you have any specific requests for colors, we've tried different, we did pink for October for Breast
Yeah,
Cancer Awareness Month,
That was nice.
and different things. So.
You just missed my birthday a couple weeks ago. That Tessa doesn't want to say it, but that's just kidding.
Oh, so we could have done blue and white.
You.
I think it's been great so far. I mean, at nighttime, that building kind of disappears without any illumination. So I think it's been great.
Yeah.
Driving by it.
Well, I drive along there home from work in the evenings and I love seeing it lit up. I think it adds a lot to that corner. And I think, like I say, as Main Street continues to get revitalized, I think that's a great corner piece for that intersection there. So.
I just have to say, I don't think I've ever seen anybody get Bryant to be quiet so quickly. So we need to invite you back more often.
Happy to come back.
We really do appreciate everything you do for our community and I think our residents appreciate it as well. So
Oh.
thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it.
All right, next we're going to have the Harvest Days Committee update and we'll have Molly. And just state your name.
Molly Signoretti. So official.
Super. So I'm just going to give a quick overview and update of where we're at planning wise, and kind of some things that we are working on. And we'll just go from there. So I'm just going to jump right in. We're going to start at pre-parade. This year, we are not going to do baby goat yoga. So that's been the event for the last few years. Last year, the attendance kind of dropped off and baby goat yoga got more expensive. It's kind of one of those things that like, once you've done it once, you don't necessarily come back. Given the cost of that, we also want to make sure that it's accessible to the majority of our residents. And so we're going to take that one off the table. I am working right now on a fun run. So I know the Rotary Club has done something with a 5K in the past. So I've connected or reached out to them to connect to do a fun run. It would be within the park, so we wouldn't have to close any roads, just because that is a little bit more logistically complicated, and to run an actual 5K event, like as a race, is pretty cost prohibitive, at least for right now. Something that we've tried to keep in mind for harvest days is just making sure that everything is accessible to everyone in the community. And so in order to run like an actual race, we would have to either get significant sponsorship, or it would cost the residents quite a bit. So for now, fun run through the park. Either I will lead that or someone else, a volunteer will essentially lead that. We're working on like a fun theme. So there'd be dress up in the morning, that kind of thing. It would be before the parade starts, not finalized, but that's our main pre-parade event right now. For the parade, we're going to keep the start time at 9 a.m. That was new for last year. But it was very well received. The feedback that we got from the parade time was better just because it's, less hot out, and people can enjoy the parade a bit more. So we've looked at the schedules for other cities and that's still available to have that time frame. And we're going to keep the same parade route as is for now, as far as I know. Just some planning timeline overviews. Last year, we did not have our first meeting until May. For harvest days, the committee is the same with the exception of we have a new member. And this year we had our first committee meeting in October. So we are substantially ahead of the timeline for last year. So that has given us the chance to kind of explore quite a few new options for harvest days, which is nice. The gap event. So last year we had a gap between the parade and when the festival actually started. So the parade ended 10:30, 11 o'clock, and the festival didn't actually start until 2. We did not have a gap event last year in between, and that's something we are exploring this year at having something basically between festival activities and the end of the parade. It hasn't been nailed down yet. I'll speak to a few of the other activities that we're kind of chatting through right now, but we're potentially going to put something in there just because people are already at the park. It won't be bingo because that's the hottest time of day. That was our big request last year, was not to put bingo there. So it won't be bingo. But just an update there. Some new festival additions that we've added this year. So we are going to add a mini golf course. Basically it's a portable mini golf course that you bring in and people can play a round of mini golf while they're there. It will most likely go kind of in the family area. But hopefully that will essentially kind of bring in that like later teens, 20s population that we would kind of are missing a lot of the activities for. Last year, we had that Carnival Row, the giant arch in the park for kids Carnival Row. We're going to add a few additional games this year to kind of make it a little bit larger. We're also going to add like a craft to go along with that so kids can participate in a craft, and it'll essentially be like a kids area. So there'll be Carnival Row along with, all of the blow up things that go over there, which is always great. We are also exploring, and this has not been finalized, but many of you guys know George. He is very into sumo, which is super fantastic. But he has all of these lovely connections nationwide, but they are working on bringing a tournament essentially to the park. It would be something educational for the population, but also bring in kind of a different group of people that we tend to kind of miss with the activities that we've chosen in the past. Something we looked at the end of last year was like, look at Midvale's population. We have a lot of very young single individuals, and we kind of don't really have a ton of activities that go with that. So just something new. Say that again.
I just thought that was funny that sumo wrestling was what's gonna.
He loves it. He's super excited. It's got a following. So it's just one of those, like, this is a great, idea to just explore, and we'll see how it goes.
And we can all participate, right?
Absolutely. So I'll make sure to let George know that you two are gonna have a match. I think
He
is what it's
might
called.
have the
Yeah.
advantage.
I think that'd be great. We are switching DJs this year, and MCs. His name is DJ Andy. He's been recommended by Tanya, who's the events coordinator. The DJ we've used in the past is phenomenal, but he has substantially increased in price and his services haven't necessarily changed at all. And in addition, he's also added team members, so he doesn't always send himself, which is something we've kind of looked at and just considered. Basically, you contract with him and it's not always him that's the DJ. So just something we considered, and Tanya, who's our events coordinator, suggested DJ Andy. She spent lots of events with him, and he's fantastic. We also added an additional skills and tales show. That one's always really popular. So we basically just added a second time to that. So those are some of the great things. The sumo wrestling, back to the Gap event, that's something we may slide in that slot, just so that it's, there's something going on during that time. Bingo, last year we had 2 hours of bingo. It was on a new night or on a new day. It will stay on Saturday, but it will actually be 3 hours this year. That was one of the big pieces of feedback, is that they wanted bingo to be longer. So we're basically going to expand those hours just a little bit more, but it will remain on Saturday rather than that typical Thursday event that it's been in the past. Food trucks, last year we kind of scrounged for these just because we were late. Because we've had some more time, we have a lengthy list, and typically they don't book out quite this far in advance, but Tanya, our events coordinator, basically has our ranked list. So we have lots more options of food trucks. So we're working on bringing a variety and then also adding a couple like snack trucks, and then like potentially an additional dessert truck. Last year there was an ice cream cart walking around, but just adding some additional food during the concert option. A couple additional activities that aren't necessarily directly related to day of. We took away bingo from Thursday. Tyler Library is going to do a game night. They're essentially going to handle the event, so it won't require any Midvale City staff, but it still provides something for the community that night, because that was one of the big pieces of feedback, was there's nothing on Thursday. And so they're going to run the whole thing, which is really great, and we'll just help promote it, which is fun. We are also looking at adding a scavenger hunt. So something during the week that people can participate in each day as they attend events. And basically at the Harvest Days event, there will be a drawing for a grand prize for people who have participated in the scavenger hunt. Just a fun way to we can throw in Midvale trivia, or, you visited X, Y, and Z park in Midvale and you've taken a picture. But we're just exploring options of how to track that. So there's several apps and things like that you can score points in. So just a fun idea that the group came up with to get people involved in more than just the day of activities. Next steps, marketing with Laura, food truck finalization, timeline for day of Gap events. Our big thing last year, we had a ton of really, really great volunteers. We want to make sure we do that early again this year. And then booth vendor applications will go live a little bit earlier than last year. So the vendors that are in the middle there. Questions? Concerns? Funny jokes? Nothing?
Sumo wrestling at the hottest part of the day.
I
mean, that could be even more interesting.
That could be more interesting. I will watch. I will not be participating in this activity, but I will cheer loud.
That's okay.
Their
Dustin will
uniform
for
is-
you.
Justin won't participate, so it'll be fine.
I mean, good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah. Thank you for all you've done. It's been fantastic working with this group. As you can see, they have a lot of ideas and a lot of energy. And anyways, I just appreciate all the work that you guys have done.
Yes.
Did we, I know we had a petting zoo. Did we get rid of that?
We did not get rid of the petting zoo.
Okay.
Tell us your thought. What's up with the petting zoo? I mean,
I don't know. I find them to be, just in general, to be pretty sad. And I know, I guess I didn't notice last year because it was raining the entire time. But I know the thought about having baby goat yoga so early in the morning is because it's hot.
Yep.
in the summertime, and then having these animals out in the park with like kids and adults trying to like get on them.
It's
and
not one
such.
we've finalized, so I can definitely bring it to the group. It is why we put them in the very specific spot every time because they're in the shade. And they don't charge us to be there.
Is it something that generates a lot of interest?
My kids die to see it.
Okay.
Go, and every kid I know ends up over there.
Okay. I was
I
gonna say,
get
my
it,
kid is scared
but-
of it still, so you tell me.
Yeah, and I think they're from Gardner Village, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they're probably sort of used to crowds throughout the year. I wasn't gonna say much because I was still mad at Wade for his comment, but I have to,
Couldn't help it.
I couldn't help it.
I also went to the U, so I won't say
Yeah,
anything,
okay,
say anything bad.
I just think it's, when I go to it, it seems usually very popular.
Okay.
However, I could see it being very unpopular if it's raining.
Yeah,
I would not
That's
want.
what, and that's maybe why Scales and Tails was so popular last year. Like
Yeah.
it was so packed. And those animals can do 2 shows. I can talk to the group about how they feel about the petting zoo. It's one, they don't charge us. They use a tip jar. So we've always invited them. It's not one we've ever been like on the table because it's not doesn't come out of our budget.
I think it's great for kids. I just hate seeing like adults trying to ride a pony
Yes,
on a hot summer day. It's
we
probably,
won't be doing any of that.
Okay.
Promise.
well, that's the thing though. You can't, I mean, if they let
them,
them, it's,
Yeah.
But it just doesn't look good.
I don't remember there being a pony last year. Maybe that was because it was raining.
There usually is.
Okay.
I don't remember them at
I
all.
remember
all day there.
Paco was walking around last year. That's all I remember.
Which was a huge hit.
Yeah, huge hit. So
But they also. I was gonna make one of those jokes that you asked for, but not a funny one, so.
it's not funny.
I'm gonna
Okay.
let it go. I'm gonna let it go.
Okay. Super.
I think
I
as
mean-
long as you guys are working on food, I know all those activities are great. But if you don't have good food,
Would you like me I can send you the list. It's quite lengthy.
Please.
We've
gone through hills and valleys with food trucks.
it was a
Parks
very,
Case.
we spent the first probably meeting and a half. It was all food truck. That's all we did was
Yeah.
like rank the food trucks in our wish list in the order. So
They're putting a lot of
Nate.
thought into the food truck.
the food truck conversation was quite lengthy.
Cool.
Nate, are we doing the food trucks here again? Is there any way we can leverage that with like, hey, we work with this food truck alliance every Friday or whatever. We want you to be here on Saturday as well at the park, like.
Yeah.
Something you could help, because I agree with Councilman Gettle. The amount of food trucks makes or breaks.
Yeah.
Because people will go home.
Yeah.
If they're like, there's 3 things for food, I'm starving, my kids don't want any of this, and then you're like, I'll be back, and then you're like,
Which is where we were at last year. We just didn't have any options. And with the food truck alliance is something we reached out to last year. And I know Tanya is working with them this year just on like who's part of that. But definitely something we've chatted about with the food truck alliance.
Have you thought about a dunk tank? Because I've mentioned that in years past. It'd be great to have the mayor in the dunk. tank.
Specifically just for Mark,
That
for the
is- that
mayor.
is one person's opinion.
He said that he.
and
would love
former
to do
mayors,
it.
actually. I'm all.
Where would you put the dunk tank?
I don't know.
Like
that's for-
front and center?
That's for you guys to. figure
Okay.
out.
I can definitely propose the dunk tank. Absolutely.
I'm a good sport if it happens, but that's one person's opinion that I would like to do that. Yeah.
I think it'd be, I mean, you can have different times, like city manager could be there.
Yeah.
Justin means everyone but now.
The chief of police could be there.
Randy, are you up for a dunk tank?
Can you imagine the line? Arts council could be in the dunk tank.
I think it's great. I will definitely add that to our list is dunk tank. We haven't finalized all the activities yet, so we have some room.
So we had it done
Ki-
a few years ago, and you are limited somewhat by being close to the hose or the water source or something.
I'm sure Public Works can help us with this. Although the one downfall to that is if we're in drought, again, it doesn't really look great. So.
Okay, Molly, what can this council do to be supportive of the Harvest Days committee?
You guys are already, I mean, you're doing, yeah, nothing new right now, but I'll let you know.
We're here to support as you
Thank
move
you.
forward and if you need anything.
Yeah,
We appreciate
absolutely.
all of your work.
Always.
Thanks, Molly.
You're welcome.
Bye.
All right. Proclamation declaring March as National Women's History Month. Declaring March as National Women's History Month. Whereas American women of every race, class, and ethnic background have made historic contributions to the growth and strength of our nation and city in countless recorded and unrecorded ways. And whereas American women have played and continue to play critical economic, cultural, and social roles in every sphere of life. And whereas American women have played a unique role throughout the history of the nation by providing the majority of the volunteer labor force of the nation. And whereas American women were particularly important in the establishment of early charitable, philanthropic, and cultural institutions in our nation. And whereas American women have served our country courageously in the military, and whereas American women have been leaders not only in fighting for their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity, but also in the abolitionist movement, the emancipation movement, the industrial labor movement, the civil rights movement, the peace movement, and other movements which create a more fair and just society for all. And whereas, despite these contributions, the role of American women in history has been consistently overlooked and undervalued in the literature, teaching, and study of American history. And whereas, despite the president issuing a proclamation each March calling upon the people of the United States to observe March as Women's History Month, our society still has a long way to go to create an equitable and just society for all women. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Stevenson, and the City Council of Midvale City do hereby declare the month of March as Women's History Month and encourage all people everywhere to honor the significant contributions of women in our community, state, and nation. And we have all signed this. Let me double check that. Brian passes to you. All right, moving on to public comments. Any person wishing to comment on any item not otherwise scheduled for a public hearing on the agenda tonight may address the city council at this point by stepping to the microphone and stating their name for the record. Do we have any public comments? Okay. Seeing none, we're going to move on to reports. First of all, we do have the 2023 bulky waste curbside pickup coming up. I know I've got a flyer in my hand. I'm going to assume this is going to be up on our website and social media. Laura? Yes. But if so, the days this spring are Monday, April 13th, Wednesday, April 5th, Monday, April 10th, and Wednesday, April 12th. So that is coming up quickly, and look out for more information on that. Secondly, recently, just last week, I met with the Copperview Rec Center. I know I often in my role here, there's a lot of work that we're doing to increase youth programming that we have here in the city, and I hear concerns about all what is or isn't offered at Copperview Rec. Meeting with the manager over that rec center, it was really good to hear that they do offer much of the normal programming they offer at other rec centers, but unfortunately they're not receiving enough signups in our community. One example that the manager gave me is during the last junior jazz signup, they only got 7 signups for junior jazz, and they needed about 120 signups to make the program worth it to run. So they have the staffing ability to run it, but unfortunately we don't have enough signups. So it's something that I've talked with our communications director about of we're going to try to do some better outreach to help increase the signups for them, and hopefully that helps us see some more immediate increase to youth programming, just something to keep in mind. And also one thing I meant to mention to the Arts Council that I'm going to hope maybe Wade can hear me, but it's not going to happen, is that one of the unique programs they offer out of our rec center is actually a youth theater program. And I know that our Arts Council is always looking for more folks to get involved in the theater here. And so that was great to hear, and hopefully we can get them connected. Okay. Secondly, I just want to talk about quick legislative update now that the session is over. At our next meeting, we are going to do a more full legislative update. But just really quickly wanted to touch on both House Bill 374 that dissolves the Unified Police Department and House Bill 499, which is the homelessness mitigation funding bill. So both of those at this point have passed and are awaiting the signature of the governor. Again, with House Bill 374 that dissolves the Unified Police Department, that would take place by July 2025. So just gives us just over 2 years to figure everything out. And just for everybody to keep in mind that this bill just passed on Friday. We only got the language that passed about 2 weeks ago. And so there's a lot that we don't know and very little that we do know at this point of what this transition will look like. We're doing our research, studying our options, and then once we have all that information, we'll come back to this council and ask for more direction. As I talk about that, our hope is to continue to share services. That is based off of some of the direction the most recent direction we've received from this council on as we put forward the 4 reforms to the Unified Police Department Board. And that was within that, it was statements of that we believe in a shared services model. And so at this point, the way that personally believing in it, but also having that direction from the council, we do feel, or I feel that it's important that we continue that messaging both for our community and our police officers. I think there's a lot of different variations of what sharing services could look like, and that's what we need to figure out. And ultimately, it's over the next several months, we need to go through a process to figure out what are all of our options on the table so that we have all the information available to us and can make an informed decision as a council. And again, throughout this process, if there's any questions, comments, concerns about that, always happy to talk and want to make sure everybody is informed as we go through this. And then for House Bill 499, this did 3 main things. So this again is the homelessness bill. So A is we should receive increased mitigation funding. Again, this is the funding that those communities that host a qualified shelter receive. That increased the cap that cities that don't have a shelter that they contribute into could increase that cap from 200,000 to 275,000, which is good for us. It also changes the overflow process to hopefully make it a better, cleaner process. If you recall this last legislative session, they passed a bill that said the mayors in Salt Lake County need to come up with an overflow shelter plan, and ultimately Mill Creek took on that overflow shelter. Throughout that process, it was a little messy because it was the mayors in Salt Lake County who got to make that decision, but we didn't have we invited service providers to that table, but it was still our decision to make. And I think there was some confusion on how service providers or others should be involved. So this now creates a task force that both has mayors involved, being of core cities in Salt Lake County. So I don't believe, as an example, I don't believe Bluffdale is not on this task force because it's unlikely that an overflow shelter will land in Bluffdale. But we are, because it is a chance, we are in a core part of the county. So we have a shelter, so we're represented on there, but also service providers and 2 people who are either experiencing homelessness or have previously experienced homelessness. So hopefully, I think that's a good change. It'll get better, more robust voices at the table that we can come up with a better plan and see a better process than I think what we had this last year. Second part of that is, so Salt Lake County, we've already had to do overflow once before. We'll have to do it this year as well, this upcoming year. And then next year in the 2024-2025 winter, that is going to expand to both Davis and Utah counties, all 2nd-class counties. Washington and Weber fall in that as well, but they also already have shelters. So Davis and Utah are going to be the new groups kind of joining this conversation as being a part of this overflow process, which I think is a good thing, and ensuring that this really is a statewide issue. And so making sure that we have a statewide response is important. And the third thing that this does that is going to impact us is Code Blue, which means that essentially Code Blue, and the goal of that is to ensure that folks who are in homelessness don't freeze to death on very cold nights. So this is 15 degrees or below, including wind chill, is how this law is currently open. Each county, if you're a county between the first and the fourth class, so essentially any county that is not a pretty rural one, will need to take place in overflow, and every county will have to have an amount of facilities that open on those really cold nights. There's still a lot of questions of how this will work, but the way that it's worded is that this could be, I mean, essentially any building, but it specifically calls out government-owned buildings, nonprofits, and churches. It's unclear right now of how Salt Lake County, how many overflow or emergency shelter on cold nights are going to operate. And that's something that the Office of Homeless Services, the county, and this task force will help determine how many of those beds do we need. So there's a chance that they could come to us as Midvale City and say, hey, we need you to open up a building to provide on these cold nights. It's a chance that we don't even have one in Midvale. Those are just questions that we don't know right now, and something that we'll be figuring out along with much of the rest of the state over the next year going into next winter. Any questions about that? And again, just a reminder, at our next council meeting, we'll do more of a in-depth dive to all the things that just happened during the legislative session. Okay, with that, I'll move on to council reports. Councilmember Gettle.
Thanks, Mayor. Two quick updates, both regarding the county animal services. First, they want to give their annual report, which we're a little bit behind on that, but I was hoping I could get back to them and let them know that they could have like 20 minutes of time or so in our next workshop. Would that be okay, or do we have something planned for it already? That'd be the 21st.
Yeah, Adam, are we gonna need that whole time for the other presentation on at the workshop?
Yeah.
That would. Okay, because they could come and give a presentation like the Arts Council
Yeah.
did tonight. Is that okay if I offer that to them for the 21st?
I'm good with that.
Okay. So that's settled. Then they also, oh, actually I have 3 updates from them. Gee, thanks for putting me on this committee. No, actually, it's great. They had a plan through the county council to give out these scanning devices. Whenever there's a lost pet, you can scan them and see who they belong to. So they asked if cities would like to have 1 or 2 of these devices. I tentatively told them, yes, we would like to have one of them. But I told them I'd make sure that that was okay first. I would assume that we get calls here at City Hall and then we tell people to call animal control. I don't know if there was like an off chance someone would bring a dog to like Public Works and say like, hey, does anyone know this dog? Then we have a little scanner.
I'm
It's
just not
free.
sure where it would be housed,
Yeah.
but let's talk about where
Okay.
we can do that.
Okay, sounds great. And the third thing, this is their 10-year anniversary of being a no-kill shelter. So they're planning some events where they're going around to some of the member communities with well-behaved dogs, is what they said. I think they did this before where they brought dogs into City Hall for some reason or another. They want to do this again because I've been elected as the chair of the committee. I think they want to do an actual event here at Midvale City Hall where they bring some of the dogs, they elect like a mayor dog every few years. So they want to have the mayor dog here for that. They said it can be done anytime this year. They would just like if we could provide some refreshments for that event, nothing major. They said filet mignon, something
Sure.
like that.
How long?
They said it'd be about an hour. Yeah, and it could be anytime. They said, if they wanted to have like as many council members and the mayor available as possible for like photo opportunities. So, I mean, that could be like its own workshop at some time, I thought. if that would be okay. And again, it can be, they said anytime this year. And whenever we have it planned would dictate like some of the activities, like there is an election this year for the mayor dog. So if it's at that time, they could bring in the candidates for people to come meet the mayor dog candidates. This is starting to sound like Parks and Recreation, to be honest, but
Are they, I know you were talking about doing it also as part of a workshop. Are they don't care what time?
no, they don't care. I think honestly, they want as many of us to be there as possible, just because it's nice to meet and know each other and talk to each other and realize who is who. So it doesn't have to be a workshop, but it can be anytime, during the day, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, whatever. All they want really is us to have a place for them to be and some refreshments.
Let's you and I connect in the next day or two to talk about those last two things in scheduling
Okay.
and we'll think about where we would post what is it, lost dog reading machine is my note.
Yeah.
So, okay.
When a dog is lost, they scan them, shoulder blades, they
Chip.
have a
Yeah. No,
microchip.
I'm with
So
you.
I don't know if that's ever happened, or maybe even UPD might. No, chief doesn't want one. Cause it is one of those things you don't want a lot of people to know, cause then any stray dog is gonna come into City Hall and they'll be like, they have a scanner.
Yeah.
Scan it, but yeah, I think that's it, unless you want me to talk more about the mayor dog. Some more.
What are their platforms?
Well, we'll have to invite them to see.
Stump speech.
That's it for me, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Brown.
Yeah, just have a couple of things. Like to thank Public Works for the 2 snow events we had in between the Snowmageddon of our last council where we left early and what was it, yesterday or the day before when we woke up to like 5 or 7 inches of snow that I was not aware was coming. So yes, if you need more salts, we should just, suspend the rules now and let Glenn have the more salt. In fact, the only complaint I got was someone was like, on that first storm, they said, tell them not to come down our road because I want to drag my kids up and down behind my truck. And I'm like, I'm absolutely not doing that. But so that was the only complaint. You came too soon this time for my road, apparently. Yeah, don't tell your people that. I prefer the clean road. I want to thank Arts Council for coming in. I think it's just not, said enough, especially Wade and Stephanie, they're 20+ years. They don't get paid. They put a lot of time. If they're in a show, that's even more commitment than whatnot. The show Matt spoke about, I thought was one of the best shows I've seen there. So if you guys have time, there's 3 a year. I try to make it to at least 1 or 2. Sometimes I, don't make it to all 3, but they're worth it. It's very inexpensive entertainment, but good value to put out. So I appreciate them. One thing that we talked about yesterday in our meeting was considering, sort of next steps to putting a marquee on that corner, right? So it could be a billboard, so to speak, like we have here or over on at the park. I think we looked into it under Kane. I think it was a zoning issue or something like that. It might have to be a rezone. I think it'd be a good idea. If we want to work, see what that would take, if that's even possible, and if people are okay with it, we should look at it. But I think it'd be a good benefit because it could also announce events that'll happen on Main Street, and you'll have it on both ends of Main Street, right? Whether it's on City Hall or on that side. I think it'd be a good idea, and kind of died, and then COVID happened or whatever. We kind of just stopped talking about it, but something we should look into. And this week I got 3 different people reach out to me. They asked me about the CHG parking, half-finished parking structure. I feel like at this point, are we getting close to where they have to do something on it? Right? They can't just sit with a half-built parking garage forever.
They'll be finishing that up. They'll be taking 1 layer off of the original approval, but they're submitting revised drawings to continue that building permit. So it is in process.
Will they finish it this year? Or start working on it this year?
Yes.
Is a better question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't want them to
Can't say
submit.
finished, but I believe they'll start. Yeah.
I just would hate like the clock to start is just because they submit with new plans without a top
No.
level.
Yeah, they're just going to continue on with the active building permit that they have. They're just revising and resubmitting the plans to replace the older ones. So,
That worries me that that's short-sighted, which means that they don't have a plan to build a big building there, right? Because they probably don't need it. But yeah, that's too bad. That means whatever they will put there will be smaller. You know, and
likely, yes. Mhm.
that's, I don't know. I don't think that's what the city really wants, but I don't know if we can really do much about that, I guess. All right, that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Robinson.
I actually also just wanted to thank Public Works. We had a tree situation on 7500 South, and I would think within 6 minutes of the initial email, I drove down to the property and Public Works was already there taking care of the issue. And Glenn was also kind enough to follow up with the homeowner the following day. So I just wanted to express some gratitude for all the hard work. So that's all I have.
Councilmember Glover.
Nothing this evening.
Okay, Councilmember Sperry.
You know, again, Public Works, thanks. You know, you've put in a lot of time, not just you, Glenn, but you know, everybody in Public Works. The only issue that I had with the, you know, with the snowstorms, I know there were some complaints. I mean, I had a total of 4 and they were all with people in cul-de-sacs. I mean, I know they're the lowest in priority, but I don't know if that's something we can talk about come our you know, retreat when we talk about everything going into next year, to see if that is something with the budget of another truck that we have to address, or how we can do that. I mean, I know with the snowstorm this week, there was the smaller truck that we had. I saw that out clearing some cul-de-sacs, so that was good. And I didn't hear any complaints this week, so. But I know with the big storms and you know, thank you for all of our residents who are patient. It takes a lot of time. And we know everybody wants to be the first on the list, but it's just not possible. So we do our best, but if, you know, if we can look at some of that to try to address some of the concerns that we have, I think that'd be good. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, city manager report, Matt.
I have nothing this evening.
Okay. All right, moving on to the consent agenda, just one item, consider minutes of February 21st, 2023. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mayor, I motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion on that? Rory, will you call roll?
Yes, Councilmember Sperry.
Aye.
Glover,
Aye.
Robinson,
Aye.
Brown,
Yes.
and Gettle.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That passes. We just have one action item tonight. Consider resolution number 2023 R09, amending the budgets of the general fund, capital projects fund, water fund, sewer fund, and information technology fund for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023. Right.
Okay, there was only one change in this since I presented it to you in the tentative, but I'll do a quick overview of what's changing here. If you'll remember, the vast majority of this is rollover from fiscal year 22 of one-time funds for projects and things that did not get finished in fiscal year 22, either because of supply chain, labor force, those kinds of issues. So in the general fund, we're carrying forward $105,000. 105, yes, I said that right. For website, some employee association things, community development projects, and planning and professional services. And the one change from the tentative, or that wasn't the tentative, but what I presented to you last time is here in the capital projects fund, where we've added an additional rollover of about $1.2 million for pavement management. Didn't originally include that because I didn't know that Keith would be able to spend all that was budgeted this year and what was last year's, but he said, yes, we're rolling, we're moving. I've got projects, let's do it. So that's included in this, as well as the other projects listed here for a total of $1.7 million. In the water fund, we're carrying forward about $700,000. The bulk of that is in capital projects that again weren't completed last year. In the sewer fund, $380,000, again, capital projects with sewer line manhole replacements, those kind of things. In the fleet fund, this is one of the only places that it's not just to carry forward. We're also increasing the budget by $270,000 on the pieces of equipment and vehicles that were budgeted. That's just the increase in the cost of vehicles from when we budgeted to what they're actually costing this year. But for a total increase of $790,000, which also includes $520,000 hydrovac that was budgeted for last fiscal year. And then $10,000 in the IT fund. Any questions?
Okay, seeing none. I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, move that we adopt resolution 2023 R09, amending the fiscal year 2023 budget for the general fund, capital projects fund, water fund, sewer fund, fleet fund, and information technology fund as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Rory, will you call roll?
Yes. Councilmember Glover,
Aye.
Robinson,
Aye.
Brown,
Yes.
Gettle,
Yes.
and Sperry.
Aye.
Okay, that carries. Thank you. All right, moving on to our first discussion item of the night, discussion of 2023 Midvale municipal election process. Rory.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you know, we have a municipal election this year for districts 1, 2, and 3. Not 3. Yes, 3. Yes, you are. Well, you're just gonna run again, right? So with that, we have got a new process. Do I just push the arrow? Thank you. With the county, they have relooked at their costs. They have given us a substantially different cost outline this year. For the traditional, as you can see, if we just have it a traditional with the primary, if we have the primary, it's $22,815. They will bill us for actual expenses. Before this, they used to do a not to exceed. And apparently last election in 21, they exceeded the amounts. They had not tested the RCV voting. It costs more than they had estimated. So they underestimated their quotes, but they honored them. This year, they're not going to do that. This year, they're going to do expenses, all expenses that we incur, we will pay. If we do not have a primary, it will be $14,830. If we decide to go with ranked choice voting, that eliminates the need for a primary. And Dustin Gettle, or Councilmember Gettles, thank you for reaching out to me on that because I did have it wrong in the agenda summary. Without the primary, the general would start at $14,830. So about the same cost, but then they add the RCV costs. And I'm going to jump here just a little bit to our next slide. It shows the difference in the cost. So currently we have 2 municipalities that I know of that have said they're going to have RCV voting, Salt Lake City and Mill Creek. I have not heard from anyone else yet. So I'm not sure how many entities are going to be having the RCV. This is based on these additional costs are based on how many entities actually use RCV voting. The more, of course, the cost goes down, the less the cost goes up. So this is going to take, this is how I just showed the 2 that I had. It's going to take the $14,830 plus the additional costs of right now it'd be $18,078 with just the 2 entities, bringing us to $32,940. Plus, we do have a communications plan. I know that Councilmember Glover wanted it to be more substantial from last time. I've just put a ballpark in there of 20,000. It could be less. Just we don't have it put together because we weren't sure which way you were going to go. We do need to let the county know by the 28th what decision we decide to go with. We also need to approve their agreement by the 28th. Okay. Just for your information, the deadlines for traditional, the deadline for municipal candidates to declare would be June 1st through the 7th. And if we do ranked choice voting, it moves to August 8th through the 15th. Election dates, if we have a traditional, the primary election is August 15th if needed. And the canvass is the 29th of August. And the general election for both is November 7th with a canvass of November 21st. Any questions? I did hand you out what they gave me at the meeting. And as you will see, there was one other option I did not put on my slides. And that was to have a RCV primary and then a traditional general. I thought that would be extremely confusing for the voters. So I didn't even put that down.
No, thanks.
Well, that doesn't, that kind of defeats the whole
It does.
purpose of ranked choice voting.
Yeah,
in my
that's
opinion.
kind of what I thought too. I think if you're going to go one way or the other, pick a way. So I did not put that in there because I thought it was a little difficult for the voters.
Yeah, we have to do an education piece on ranked choice voting and then tell everyone
Oh, but wait. it's
that
gonna
now that you've
change.
done that, now everything you knew about that,
Yeah.
that's not what's happening here.
Forget all of that, go back to where it used to be. Are there any questions, comments, concerns? The one thing that I was concerned about is it looked like our voter registrations went down quite a bit. We don't have very many, it's 9,669 for the whole city. Active registered voters. That's not a very high number.
What was the last time?
I think it's 17,000.
Have you
doesn't-
inquired about?
Accurate.
Pardon me?
Have you asked the county clerk? if
I
they
have
this?
not, no.
I'd be, that's.
We need to dig into that.
Yeah, I can
I
definitely
don't
ask
know
them
if
for
they
more
did a
information.
cleanup of inactive,
They may
removed
have.
inactive voters or something.
That does
I don't
happen
know.
every 4 years. If they don't vote in
Yeah,
a presidential, they
so
will
I'm
remove them.
curious
That could have
if
been
it's
this
something,
last.
or I would love for that just to be a technical error.
I will
that somehow
definitely-
occurred, but I'm getting more information on that.
I was pretty shocked by that too, so I will definitely dig into that a little bit more.
I just wanted to note that, obviously, if we choose to do ranked choice voting, that number goes down from 18,000, because
Correct.
that's just for two. But I
Yes,
also spoke to a couple of people today. Salt Lake City said that they were gonna do it. Mill Creek said that they're gonna do it. But my opinion is hopefully we continue to do it, and South Salt Lake is going to do it as well. So that already puts us at 4, which decreases that number from 18,000 to 9,000.
it does.
So I think that's helpful. And I'm not sure about I know you just put in a placeholder number for the
I did. I wasn't
communication
sure on that.
plan, because I don't know that needs to be that expensive, but
Last year we did 15,000.
that's what I was wondering too. Can we get the actual costs of the 2021 ranked choice voting and just see,
Absolutely.
2021,
Sure.
and just see, because I think that's probably a better way to gauge the price.
Yeah, it seemed like the other thing too with the 2021 is it was a mayoral election, so it's an at-large. So it's a little bit different.
Mhm.
But I
But
believe
maybe
it was
with
about 36,
three-
but I'll check to make sure.
Maybe with 3 council seats this time instead of 2 plus the mayor, maybe
It might
it'll
be equivalent.
Do we
be
know?
close.
Because in 2021, if I just understood correctly, they capped us at a certain amount, though. Just
It
that
was not
agreed
to
upon.
exceed. Yes, and
Did we
the,
hit that?
yeah, oh, well, yeah, definitely. We
Oh.
definitely hit that.
Because I guess that's another thing that's gonna hinder a comparison, is if we hit the cap, then we don't actually know what
Right.
that full cost would have been, because we weren't given a whole.
And I
cost.
don't know what the cost would have been because they just made the comment that they underestimated quite a bit.
Well, hopefully there's just some accounting for that money, other than just like, here's a bill, trust us, this is what it costs, because
Right.
it really, to me, doesn't seem like it should be that much more I mean, they use software to tabulate the ranked choice voting results. So
Correct.
you're still opening ballots, you open one ballot that has the ranked choice voting. I don't understand how it could be more money than a traditional, like you're doing the exact same things. So
Yes.
I know
and-
that's not,
No, I get that. And that was the answer I got when I inquired.
yeah, it
As to
seems
why-
like one of those things. It's like, this is new, so we can charge more.
Yeah.
But like, are you really providing any additional
does it
services
take?
that cost money?
Sure.
So,
It looks like we paid about $21,000.
and does that give you like an idea of, is that just what they said, not to exceed 21,000? So that's the number, or did they give you the number like, okay,
It should have been
it
30,
was
but
36, but we agreed to charge you
No,
21?
no.
It's just the 2021 municipal election.
No, they didn't give us an amount as to what it would have actually
Okay.
cost. Unfortunately, I
we
wish they
ask
would
them?
have. I
Can-
can ask them,
yeah, because if it was $800
like, to see
more.
what it would have been.
Maybe as you talk with the county clerk's office, it would
Mhm.
also be good to get information of why the price difference in that, and just purely, is that a policy choice, or is
Yeah.
whatever system they're using to count?
Give us a little more
Do they get
information.
charged more based on that?
What they're using. Right,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'd personally like to continue doing it. As someone that did a pretty crazy primary, my first time, I think I won by like 9 votes or something. It was less than 10. It's really hard on the district, I think, because you're going out in August and your positions are a little bit stronger, right? Because you're trying to like just win people over. Then you have to go out a second time, right, to do it again, and just a lot of emotions and whatnot. I just think ranked choice voting, not only you don't have that voter fatigue, right? Like, oh, I just voted, in August or whatever. But, the whole idea is you play nice, right? Because if you're not going to get the first vote, you want that second vote. So I think just from a community standpoint, both on, voter fatigue, getting people to vote, and for everyone to treat people more civilly, I think it's a better option. The only negatives I heard was that one group that like told us it was like the mark of the beast or something along those lines. And, I'm not quite ready to consider that an equal opinion on this topic.
The only thing, we always seem to have at least one race that would trigger a ranked choice voting. But, what if this is the year that, there's only 3 candidates who
Right.
file to run?
Right.
Are we able to, I would just assume that we wouldn't like incur many more costs.
If that was the case, I would definitely follow up with them and make sure that we don't.
And is it something, because I know if we would choose traditional voting, we don't have more than 2 candidates, we cancel the primary election
Correct.
because there's no need for one.
Correct.
So is it something that if we don't have ranked choice voting, like if we don't have a race that triggers ranked choice voting, can we cancel that part? And I don't know, it seems like if we don't have ranked choice
If
voting.
you don't have if you don't have 3 people, why would we need a stop one?
If we just had the 3
Yeah.
people,
Then they just need to open the ballots as they normally do on a general
and
election.
it wouldn't cause any additional counting. It's a good point. And a good question that I will ask.
Do you know when you want to bring this back for action by the council? You said April 28th, we have to have it to them.
Correct.
Do you have a,
If there's a decision on which way you want to go, I could bring it back at the next meeting. However, if not, we could push it to the first part of April.
For me, my biggest concern is actually figuring out this number,
I'd be
right?
happy to
How we
find out more
dropped
information.
almost 10,000 people. That's like a third of the city. And then if that is the case, which I think it's unfortunate if the county does that, I think that's be something we decide if we purge them or whatever, but I guess we don't really get to make as many decisions about our voters as we want. We need to spend money on actively
Yes.
engaging the community to get
Correct.
that number up,
Correct.
because,
I was pretty disturbed by that number.
yeah, that's,
It's very low.
Would it have anything to do with, sorry.
go ahead.
Would it have anything to do with, I know we just changed our districts. So I don't know if there's some.
No, this is active voters in the city.
it should be by precinct, so they should find it.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense to go from 17 to
Well,
9.
in some ways, it might. Because if they haven't been voting and they're taken off, we have so many apartments in the city. People move all the time,
And the new people might not have
and the
registered.
new
or something.
people probably have not registered. It doesn't mean we don't have that many people there. They just have not registered.
And
We
they-
just have grown by thousands, so that even then the math should still
It should
work
be
out.
going
that-
up.
But
Yeah.
not if they're moving and not registering.
Well, that makes sense. I know from knocking on doors, sometimes you go to an apartment and there's like 6 people listed in the same one and you just kind of have to guess.
Yeah.
Are you?
Are you any of these 6 people?
And the other thing too, if they have done that and they have not registered, then they can do a provisional ballot where they can go ahead and vote. So we may see a bigger amount of people coming out and to vote, but just as a disturbing number.
I'm old school, so I like the old way, but I'll live with either one. It doesn't matter to me. My personal opinion is, though, I think the city gets better if we have both elections. They get more time to meet all the candidates and listen to them. And it's harder for the candidates because they have to spend a lot more time doing it, but the citizens get a lot more time to get to know who's actually running. That's my personal opinion.
I just think it's more contentious. That's what it leads to.
I don't know. I've never been contentious with any. I've had some crazy candidates against me, but it's never been contentious ever. Even going door to door, it's always been kind and considerate. I've never I'll bet I've had 2 people in the time I've ran that have ever really got contentious with me.
I feel like ranked choice voting does encourage more to run on your platforms versus what your opponent is or isn't doing.
Yeah.
So, I do like the ranked choice voting. I would like to see why that number is.
Sure.
So far.
Yeah, I will definitely bring that back.
But
I can bring back that
Okay.
information at the next meeting and you can roll it over a little bit more, see what you decide.
thank you.
I'll just say, thanks for getting that information. And for me, I think there's a few different lenses as we think about this. And I'll just, for me personally, one lens I think about is how this plays with the legislature as well. There was a bill this legislative session to just stop this pilot program altogether. I think too often, sadly, this is an opportunity that the state allowed us to try this pilot. And so that's where I think, like, if all these cities drop out, then I think that even though I think it's sad that we have to say they allowed us, but they allowed us to do this. And I do like the idea of, well, let's take advantage of it so we can at least, because for me, I think cities should have the option, but if cities don't participate in it, then I think the state's going to say, why would we even give you the option? We're just going to tell you what to do.
Good
And so from
point.
that lens, for me, I like the idea of at least going through with the next election, which then gets us through this pilot period
Sure.
that the state has set up. It's kind of where I think I'm at right now.
Okay, great. I will get all the information I can and get back to you next week.
Thank you. All right, discussion of perpetual access easement agreement between Midvale City and Salt Lake County for the construction, maintenance, and operation of 2 concrete boat ramps adjacent to the Jordan River. Glenn, before you get started, I just have to say, ever since my facade comment, every time I'm reading something, I'm like double reading it as I'm going along saying, am I gonna mess up something dumb? And now it's gonna happen again. So
You did well.
thanks, go ahead.
Okay, so as the mayor mentioned, the topic tonight is the Salt Lake County is requesting a perpetual easement that would allow them to access property along the Jordan River at approximately 76 this south. You can see the circles there. The purpose of these ramps are to allow boaters to portage across the rough section. I'm not going to point up there because you can't see it, but you can see that there's a fairly rough section in the river there. Depending on river conditions, the one kind of drops off like 3 feet. So this would allow boaters to exit the river before they get to the rapids, portage their vessel down the road to the next boat ramp. This image showed the rapids a little bit better, but this is their construction plan, 60%, but it's close enough. So basically you can see how that the ramps will connect to the trail, go into the river. They can leave the river, go down. And I don't know if any of you have walked the trail to see they call it the launch at 78th. So the further south on the river, they've already got one basically constructed. It's just a launch. It's not a portage, just access to get in and out. But this agreement would allow the county, to have a construction access down Howe Cove, which you can see there. They might use the staging area at that dead end hammerhead. And then it gives them access and an easement to go down to the river, construct, maintain, and they will maintain it in the future. And the easement also allows or states that Midvale will allow the public to use it, but I don't, that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Glenn, how does it work? I know some of those areas back there, just with discussions with you, it's like, who owns this particular plot of land? Is that a concern that some of this area might be owned by the Wasatch Group or whoever owns the
No,
lots?
the county had the survey done and the legal description was a part of the agreement. But this is all part of Midvale.
Okay.
Are there any other questions?
I think it's great. I mean, somebody who's kayaked, the Jordan River, if you look at the trails, they actually say don't go in most of Midvale because of lack
because of those
portage.
types of things.
Mhm.
So that's good to know. I like it in that there'll be more of a public presence there, I believe. So the more public there, the less crime and vandalism. And it was timely. We talked about river rescues today. This might increase some of that. So
Is there an estimated timeline on those being completed?
they want to start they want to start this spring. So I'm assuming that it'll be completed summertime.
Thank you.
You know, you talk about river rescues, it may be good to put signs up there about the importance of still wearing a life jacket. I mean, it's surprising when you go on.
Oh, yeah.
Hardly anybody wears one when you're,
It's 2 feet deep.
I mean,
I'm kidding.
no, it's not, you're
I know,
right.
I'm kidding.
But you can, I mean, people still died.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, I
for
tell my kids, I'm like, yeah, you can stand up in most of it, but I want them to learn if you're on the watercraft.
Yeah, for
you're
sure.
wearing it no matter what. I don't
Right.
care
We
where
could-
you are.
If I'm not sure if the county has plans for signage, if not, then we will look into them.
We were discussing earlier today just about, depending on how the weather is this spring, the potential for flooding and swift water and all that kind of stuff. And so, I mean, in addition to what you're saying, we also were looking at how we're going to communicate to remind people that
Be safe.
other ways to be safe on the river.
Yeah.
Maybe
Run-
put a sign up
runoff's gonna be real.
piranhas, right?
What's
What is that, over the last 20 years, there's 2 piranhas have been caught in the Jordan River, right? I think.
There's
Put that-
every
put that up
fish
there
in the
too.
Jordan River.
Yeah. I mean, it's like pets that people put in there, right? They're gonna die, but
There's an alligator in there too.
it could be. I don't know.
If there are no more questions or discussion, is council comfortable with this going on the consent agenda for the next meeting?
I need to go fact check myself on the piranha statistic though.
Is council comfortable with this going on a consent agenda? I see no objections.
Thanks.
Excellent. All right, discuss employee bonus program. Matt.
All right, so, as part of our ongoing discussions, as senior staff about, how can we continue to improve the organization, make it more efficient, as well as looking at some of the issues of retention that you have been gracious enough in the past year to help us out with some new programs. We, thought we would look at what a potential employee bonus program would look like. Based on that, we came up with some general goals that we're looking to, as I was saying, improve efficiency of municipal operations, incentivize creative solutions and exceptional work by staff, and support employee retention. Based on that, we came up with, I came up with a fairly general program looking at one that would be designed to reward employees that go above and beyond their normal responsibilities to develop, implement, improve, or perform projects, policies, or procedures that reduce Midvale city expenses or increase revenue. Generally speaking, the way I would see this program working is that an employee would do the exceptional work. Their supervisor would submit a written request to the city manager. City manager would review that written request, evaluate the impact of the employee's effort on municipal operations. And then the city manager would determine if a bonus should be provided and what amount. Basically, what I would be doing as the city manager in the case of this program is like, I would look at it and say, you know, clearly if someone has saved $200, maybe that doesn't warrant this program. But we have examples of some staff members who have done things that have either increased our revenue by doing something exceptional by thousands of dollars. We also have an example of someone in public works, for example, who did some work that was sort of outside of their normal job responsibilities, but something that they, some work that they were certified to do in her previous career, and it saved us thousands of dollars. And so in those types of situations where we're asking them to go a little bit above and beyond, and they're saving the city money, that we thought an award would be of a bonus would be a good way to go. What we're looking at right now is that the bonus would not exceed $500 per award, and we'd be looking at maximum, making the maximum amount that we can provide in the next for the year being $5,000. couple of notes before we get into the discussion. The first thing is the funding source that if you guys are amenable to a program like this, we would use would be coming out of salaries and wages. We budget at 100%. Oftentimes, because we have positions that are open for periods of time, we have some additional funding there, and we would be able to find funding in order to fund this program. In addition to that, I'm sure right now each of you are going through and saying you could think of better ways of crafting this program or operating it, and there are probably 1,000 different ways that you could go about doing it. But there are ways that this program could be sort of more complicated, and it could also just take more forms. Excuse me. So just so you know, we talked about the idea of like, what if we just had a bonus program that was just rewarding people for exceptional work? And that maybe is something that we're going to look at in the future. However, we look at, we have historically had very generous merit increases that we're allowed to have based on performance. So if someone is doing just normal exceptional work, that could be covered under that program. The other thing is that when you start to go through and try to say what constitutes exceptional work, given that within the city we have so many people doing so many different things, it'll either require the program to have be a lot more complicated so that it's very clear who's eligible for that, or it becomes a lot more subjective, which has the potential in my mind to create some concerns amongst the organization due to perceived inequality or something like that. And so the thought was this simple system where it's clearly tied to financial benefits to the city is something that I think we can work on. Now, that being said, it's just a proposed program, it's experiment. If you're interested in it and it works really well, maybe we look at expanding it. If it doesn't work so well, we could come back, look at ways of modifying it, or even if, maybe the program, doesn't go away if it doesn't actually achieve any of the goals that we had for this. But that's one of the things we're looking at. One other thing I do want to mention though is I meant to put this on here, but just for total clarity, is that bonuses are heavily taxed. And so, sorry, Mariah, will you remind me, is it like 40% of a bonus is taxed? So, that is a downside to a program like this, but it doesn't change the fact that there's still a reason for going about implementing a program like this. Now, that being said, if you have concerns or don't support the program, happy to have that discussion. And if you are supportive of a program like this, we would go about putting more details into the policy for your final approval.
I feel like this creates an inverse incentive of what we would want. I like the idea of trying to find as many creative ways to bonusing and whatever, but like, what if the next public works guy's like, oh, I'm gonna not ask for more salt, right? And because in the street will just be more dangerous. No one's gonna really be able to know. I kind of manage the salt, right? And he's like, hey, I saved $20,000 on salt that Glenn, asked for every year, so I should get money off of this, right? And that creates an incentive for that person to then put the citizens at at a disadvantage. And like, how granular would you get? Like, would salters be like, hey, I'm gonna open the I'm gonna tighten up how much salt comes out and come back with more salt, right? Like, I just don't see how that could work, right? If you're saving money, but like at what cost? Is there waste? I don't know. Like,
yeah, and so very good points. I think what we're looking at too is it requires the supervisor to evaluate what they did and make a recommendation to the city manager. And then I would also sort of review that to make sure that these are sort of new and exceptional. So the example project that we're looking at is that we had an employee who was asked to he's a certified welder, though that's not a typical job responsibility. You guys had allocated $12,000 last year for salt storage. Salt hanger construction. And we were able to utilize this person's skills in something that's not normally their responsibility, and it ended up doing it for about half the cost that it would have otherwise cost.
I think there's just as many great examples like that also could be offset by people that have,
Glenn, can,
well, so Syracuse or something did this with their city council. And they instantly were like, the city council members were like, at their budget retreat, were like, we don't need the $20,000 item. We don't, because they were gonna get a bonus, the council members, for saving the city money off the budget. Right? And that didn't last a year, right? Because everyone went, this is a terrible idea. And so I think it was sort of proven that here's like one good intentioned person, here's a good intention. You get like one person that doesn't, and it causes a bunch of issues,
Yeah. And like I said, we're just, you make valid points, and that's why we would hope that the system would catch that. The other thing, I mean, I'd be willing to do as well, if it makes you feel any better, whether it does or it doesn't, would be to say that once I approve it, we would report to the council, provide that written description, indicate what it is and what the awarded amount is too, so that, if you identify something that is a problem like that, the situations that we've been looking at aren't exactly people finding normal savings. It's usually it's doing extra work is sort of where we end up receiving.
and I'm fine with that. And I think that's a good idea, but I just, we need to be very careful on how that looks. And I just don't want that. And hopefully every employee can find a way to enjoy in that too. That would be my other concern, is like, hey,
Right.
no, only these handful are able to, right? And so people try to find ways or whatever, where a merit-based sort of has the opportunity for everyone, right? In theory, to get a bonus. So yeah, if there's, at least the way it sounded and presented, it worries me right away. But if again, your example makes sense, but how do you not ever get the other example where you lower services to the city who pay taxes, right? That's like my biggest concern. You would hate to see that. And
Right. We can also look at seeing if there's some other clever way to try to prevent that from happening as we put the program together. Anyone else have any?
One of the issues I've brought up to you before is, and I don't know if there's a way around this, but just at Christmas time, all the employees get a bonus, not really a bonus. It's something from the employee association in the form of a gift card, which then always results in me at the beginning of the year looking at my paycheck and like, what the heck? Why is there so much more taken out in tax this time? Is there any way to get around that? I mean, is a gift card taxed higher even than just a straight like employee paycheck bonus?
Mariah, will you remind me on that?
Gift cards are the same as bonus. There's no way around that unless we just increased everyone's wages by that amount, but that doesn't sit as well with people. They like the gift.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing that's just, it's bothered me in the past. We have that program at the state. So it's like, yeah, you got a $50 bonus and then it's, you got 20 extra bucks, which is fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, and if you're doing 500, then, it might be they get 300 or so after taxes. It's just that I just didn't know if there was some creative accounting within the confines of statutes and ordinances that could afford someone more of the money that they have been awarded through a bonus.
We had a training earlier today that
I missed
discussed
that one.
how to.
Is that the-
I'm kidding. We've definitely looked through that to see if there's any absolutely legal and transparent ways of trying to reduce that tax burden, and
There's no way.
absent, she said, of
Hey,
increasing
Dustin, if
wages.
you figure out how to do that, you can get the bonus.
Oh, yeah. Hey. That's true. No, I think it's a great idea. I don't like these programs just for like, someone who like, hey, we didn't think they were going to be that good at their job, but they really are better than we thought. I've seen people get awarded bonuses for that, and that just makes people angry. Cause they're like, well, I do what they do also. So as long as it's something that is someone who's clearly going above and beyond, saving the city like thousands of dollars, I think that's a very easy. Very easy scenario, but. I think you guys are smart enough to realize that like, if someone's creating a problem that they then fix, you probably aren't gonna reward them for doing that, but. Yeah, I think it's a great idea as long as it's, again, something that's measurably saving money or going above and beyond what's expected of someone. And we have those merit increases that definitely, fill that gap for someone who just does like an above average or great job at what they're, you're supposed to be doing.
I guess just as long as it's not tied to cost cutting. Right?
Yeah.
Right, like like, hey, we don't need this program or something along those lines. If it's tied to,
I think cost cutting could be one of the things that you might be eligible for an award for if it's like a legitimate cost cutting measure, like.
Cost cutting is a weird way to say it. I think there's probably a way to say like being frugal
Yeah.
or being more efficient in the way you spend.
but
money.
again, that goes back to my main point, being frugal or being whatever is like a very subjective term to each person. And again, you're providing a service to 30,000 people, right? That aren't in this room. And so to be subjectively frugal on something that's a service is a negative. You're just going to get people complaining, right?
Let me maybe just address that really quickly. If there was your example, somebody's cutting back on salt, service levels are dropped, right? But then they come to me because it's going to be vetted through me first. This is what we did. I'm going to know there was a service level drop. And I'm going to say, you didn't save anything. You actually cost us more. We got a billion calls. We have to go back out. This would be vetted out. You saved the city money either in making a process more efficient or something like that, not.
And we
And-
can
and I-
specifically put in the program and not tied to a diminishing service. Service provided
I
services.
hate to squash the program for good folks on the potential that a bad thing might happen.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, the difference is it's just taxpayer money. So for the potential of a bad thing to happen with taxpayers' money is definitely always worth the consideration.
Oh, yeah, for
You
sure.
know, and in my opinion, at least well, I get it and I trust everyone in this room, but since I've been here, since I've sat here on council, we've had closed meetings worried about employees for things, right? Employees aren't perfect. They usually get weeded out, right? But we've had high level employees that have had to no longer be employed here, trying to be like as diplomatic as possible with this, right? So it would be very naive to sit here and think that'll never happen. I mean, it definitely will happen.
Yeah.
So it's like, what risk do you want to take?
Yeah, and like I said, I think we can tighten it up too, so that, like I said, we tighten up the language around not that this doesn't come at the reduction of service. I can work on that, but something that so that when we're evaluating it, it's not going to be a reduction of services.
I think that there's clearly questions to be answered here, and I think good points being made. In my opinion, it's not a reason to not try it. And if we view this as a pilot program and you're going to come back with more details, we're going to try it out. We can reevaluate what were the scenarios that is used on and refine it. I think that as we talk about taxpayer dollars, I fully agree with you, but then I also look at the examples we just talked about that also save taxpayer dollars. And
I mean, it just
think
sounds
it's
like
this balance of how do we reward? I mean, I do hear you. I think that this is where I look at this as a pilot of we should try this because we can also be better stewards if we do have something that allows us to do this.
it's just interesting because you're like, oh, are we being wasteful now? like, if we don't do this, or if there's gonna be a bunch of savings, I mean, we were wasteful to begin with, right? Like, that's why we need to be careful how we're wording this, Mayor, right? Like you're saying, you know, this could be an incentive to do this. It's like, well, should they have already been at least considering these things in their work? Which I don't think that's the case. So I don't know how often it will come up. I would like to see if other cities do something similar and then I would talk to them about, I'm guessing some cities have tried it. Find out which ones have, why it was, if it was still going on, what are the good things, what are the bad things? That way we don't have to go through the learning curve. But I'm sure there's some cities that have done it and discontinued it. I would like to know why on that as well. I think I don't mind doing pilot programs or trying it, but I also think learning from your peers is a better method than just sort of, hey, let's see where it goes and then tinker as we go, right? Because it would suck to like fire an employee that we put in a spot because, you know, maybe they were a little bit, you know, something happened, right? Because I feel like there was, what are the three pillars of fraud we talked about? Opportunity, whatever, right? That seems like a pillar, right? Opportunity,
Triangle.
right?
Opportunity,
It was the triangle.
frustration, and
Rationalization.
rationalization.
But all three of those could fit into a worker that takes advantage of this, right? Opportunities there, they could rationalize it, whatever. And so,
And we'll rewrite this. I just, it is important. I mean, that we're gonna go through 3 layers of review before it would get awarded. But what I will do is when we write the language, I'll make sure that we get into the reduction of services. We will do research like the chicken research that you did, or that you had us do for the chickens. We'll do the same sort of review for this program for neighboring communities. We'll come back with a program and then you guys can vote on or not. I mean, I think it'll be an interesting thing. I we went this far and kind of putting information together because I think there's some value in it, but you know, that's why you guys review this stuff. And if it's not something you guys think is what we should do, then that's fine too.
And it's not necessarily going to be tied to like saving the city money in some way. It can be an efficiency or an innovation or something. There was like, wasn't there a guy at Public Works who like welded a product onto the, so that might not have saved money, but it certainly, but I mean.
but that's different than cutting something off the top. Like we don't need this computer program that, you know, do like a Elon Musk and fire, you know, half the staff and then the program not work anymore.
And if the program costs too much and we cut it, then we're eligible for the bonus, right?
I'll make sure I put that in.
No,
For the
I think
record,
it's a
that was
good
a joke.
idea.
We're not going to do that.
And I've noticed, can I say one more thing? We have at the state, we have an option of a $200 bonus or whatever, or 4 hours of comp time where you can take at any time. And 9 times out of 10, this is going to shock everyone, people take the time off. So
Glenn, would that be an incentive for your crew?
So I don't know if that, you could put that in as an option. So people, because there are some people who've been here 30 years who like time off's not a concern to them at all, but some of the newer folks or some people who, may have experienced an illness or whatever, who don't have a lot of time off might benefit from 4 hours off versus the $500 bonus.
And correct me if I'm wrong here, Matt, but isn't the intent that the director or the manager would come to me and recommend somebody or I would recommend somebody? It's not like the frontline staff are going to be coming and saying, hey, I deserve a bonus because I get this, right?
Yeah.
It will be vetted out, or it will be a suggestion from a supervisor.
I like the idea as long as we can have the proper safety measures in place for Councilmember Brown. I think it's a great incentive and I really like the idea of having an option for both money or the time off.
Yeah, that's great.
I feel like that could be beneficial for a lot of people.
I'll make those changes, write it up in more detail and bring it back. Paul, were you gonna say something?
I'm just saying, I would like to see how it works. I'm willing to give it an opportunity to see if it'll actually help the reasons why we're doing this, so. But I want you to come back and really be truthful with it, you know, how well it's working.
Well, and like I said, I have no problem if just saying that anytime that we award it, that we would give you the write-up and how much we what the bonus was, so that we just send it to the council so you can review it. I have no problem with that too. It's good on a lot of different levels. Okay, appreciate your time.
All right, as far as discussion on the implementation and purpose of the new online report, a problem portal, we've been asked to table that item. Do we know when that will be brought back? It's okay if not, I just wanted to ask Glenn.
Tentatively, the next council meeting, but
Okay.
couple kinks to work out.
Okay.
Mayor, I move that we table discussion item D.
We have a motion to table.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Any
Yes.
opposed? Okay, that's table. We don't have a closed session tonight, so with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Are all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
We're adjourned. Thank you. Do you folks need any time? Nope. Okay. 8:46. Welcome everybody to the redevelopment agency of Midvale City. Rory, will you call roll?
Yes, board member Gettle,
Here.
Barry, Brown,
Here.
Robinson.
Here.
Oh, me. And Glover. Glover.
Okay,
I tried my best.
thank you. Any, moving on to public comments, any person wishing to comment on any item not otherwise scheduled for a public hearing on the agenda tonight may address the redevelopment agency of the Midvale City Board at this point by stepping to the microphone and stating their name for the record. Do we have any public comments?
You know, Mayor, there was an email that came in, but I think it's for an item on the agenda. So I don't know if we want to read it. It's for the action item, so we can read it at that point, unless you want to know.
That's fine. Why don't you read it then? We- We're, why don't you, if you have thoughts now, why don't you come give it to us now? That'd be great.
Brian may let you have it though on the Utah comment. So I don't know.
Yeah, as long as it's blue and white, we're fine with the logo. So not even listening. Wade Walker. So we did, Cody sent the three logo choices over the Arts Council and our board looked at them and had various thoughts about them and you know, some of it, there was a lot of detail in there, a lot of information about how they came up with the logo, which I think is lost on people when they look at a logo. So I think that, you know, most people don't go into, oh, this, you know, this pattern is represented in this logo or anything like that. I think that they want a simple logo that catches their attention. And so the Arts Council thought, I think it's option 3. I don't know if it's still option 3 in the packet, but kind of the funner logo with the exclamation points and stuff seemed to, I think, more capture the artsy environment that we're trying to create for Main Street and felt a little more fun than some of the other options, which looked a little, one of them looked a little more industrial, in fact, than artsy. And so anyway, I just wanted to comment that the Arts Council had looked at some of those and we appreciated the opportunity to look at them and kind of express our opinions about them. But anyway, just wanted to
Were
Uh,
make
you
that.
unanimous with that?
So we were, no, not everyone, well, we were all unanimous that that one was probably the best one of the three. I wouldn't say we were unanimous. One of them had a different choice for that. But there were, most of us were unanimous that one of them didn't make any sense at all to us as far as why they came up with that one,
So
but I
tell us.
Which one was that?
I can't
Like to hear
remember.
what you-
I don't have, oh, there's a, so the middle one with the kind of buildings kind of going opposite
That's
directions.
the one you guys didn't like.
Didn't necessarily like that because we didn't understand how it tied into the arts district necessarily. One it made a little more sense with trying to incorporate the M logo, you know, a little bit. We could see that with the Midvale Main, but the third one just seemed a lot more straightforward as far as, you know, a fun arts district that, you know, would be fun to see on signs and things around the community. So just wanted to thank you for the chance to comment on that.
Thank you, Wade. All right, any other public comment? Okay, seeing none,
Mayor, are you okay if I just read that email now?
you would
then?
like to know, that's fine.
Okay, this is from Lorraine Butler. It says, dear council members, I have not had the time to attend or make comments due to the time I've been spending in my studies. But this presentation by Fluid was something that I could not let go by. I know that anything I would write could not be read because of the lateness of this letter. Little did she know, right?
Told you.
This presentation is sophisticated, sharp, and smooth. It evokes youth and tries to tie the old and the new concerning Midvale, Maine, and the logo change. As I looked through it, the colors that were chosen for the logo were bright and overpowering. Some of the designs for the logo reminded me of the Baker hat napkin fold. I noticed how they connected that to the mountain range of X's, unique to say the least. I was also intrigued by the use of the most controversial piece of street art throughout the presentation, not very complimentary to the other artists who also contributed to the project. Thank you for your time and effort. I look forward to the final outcome for our city. Sincerely, Lorraine Butler.
Thank you.
That's it.
All right, any other public comment? Okay, we're gonna move to the consent agenda. Just one item, consider minutes of February 21st, 2023.
Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Okay,
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Any discussion or recall roll?
Yes, Board Member Brown,
Yes.
Gettle,
Yes.
Glover,
Aye.
Sperry.
Aye.
And Robinson.
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Thank you. All right, moving on to our action item. Consider resolution number 2023-02 RDA selecting a logo for future branding and marketing efforts for the Main Street area. Cody. And I just have to say, I think that's the first public comment I've heard in an RDA area in over a year I've been here now. So how
I was
excited.
thinking the same thing. That's great. I appreciate Quinn. I appreciate you reading that. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council, for your time. Excited to be here today for your consideration of a logo for the Main Street area. Just teeing up this discussion and action item. This is a part of, just kind of goes back to the small area plan, which we adopted, which gave the recommendation of a branding and marketing study and strategy for the Main Street area, as well as the Arts and Culture District feasibility study, which also recommended a branding and marketing efforts for specific to this area. Very grateful to have a branding and marketing firm actually located on Main Street with a national reach, which is Fluid, which we have contracted with to provide these services. And they have worked with us to provide a name for the area. Now they're doing the logo. Once we've decided on a logo, then they'll refine the logo and provide a branding guidelines and marketing strategy for us, which will be the extent of their services. We have Rich, which I believe he will be presenting. So I will turn the time over to him, or turn the microphone over to him. He's virtual.
Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Rich Kolopeawa. It's good to be back with your crew again to talk about the branding of Midvale, Maine. And it's really lovely to hear some feedback early on in the process. So thanks to everybody who's already shared their input. We really enjoy sharing the work that we do. And this particular project, as was just described, is important to us because we are actually there on Main Street in Midvale and are really rooting for the success of the project. So I know it's a bit late. We'll try to move things along. I know that you've also had a chance to look at the deck at some point. And so I think what's missing from the deck is just a little bit of voiceover on some of the slides that gives you a bit of background into how we were thinking about things and how the designs came about. So I am going to try to test sharing my screen. Apologies. Adam, do you by chance, are you able to share your screen?
While he's figuring that out, I'd also like to just recognize the presence of Shannon. She also works with food and she's here today. So
Thank you.
Let me see. Apologies, there's always an IT issue at the least convenient times.
It
You're
doesn't.
good.
Not all right.
Let me see. Let me see if that worked. Are you able to see my screen?
We
We're seeing your
can.
calendar.
Yeah. I would,
please.
That's not useful to anyone.
There we go.
All right, let me get us to the right spot. Not the most elegant of transitions, but I think this will do the job. So as you know, we live there on Midvale, Maine, and the key steps that we've been engaged to help with is to name the area, to design the logo, and the entire design system around it, and then develop a more comprehensive branding and marketing. Let me move you over. Sorry, marketing and branding system. And then a guide so that you're able to keep the brand alive and consistent through all the years to come. So today's focus, we really are just looking at the logo and the design system. Our objective today is to get the council's approval on the redevelopment agency's recommended branding selection. And it sounds like that selection is also popular amongst other shareholders. So a little bit of background, we've covered this in a previous meeting. Midvale City, we are looking to rebrand the historic Main Street area and trying to fuel the vibrancy of the art, food, and cultural center there on Midvale, Maine. The specific goals, you're probably very familiar with this. This all stems from the studies that were done into demographics, into marketing opportunities, all the things that are going to help the area strive. And so these bullet points identify those specific goals: attracting new investments, supporting existing businesses, strengthening residential areas in the area and surrounding, improving connectivity, and then improving the neighborhood identity. So these are all things that feed into our process. So the audience that we are aiming for, and this is important because, and it came up in some of the feedback that's already been shared tonight. There is, a version of this that would try to appeal to all Utahns everywhere. But what's going to be most effective in persuading people to come to Midvale and thinking about Midvale is by narrowing our focus to a smaller slice of that audience to really target those who are the most persuasive in both their opinions and in their socialization and word of mouth. So that, when we connect with them, we are also actually getting a bigger bang for our buck by making a bigger impact within their networks. So who we're talking to is a smaller slice. And again, this came from the market analysis that was completed by Web Management early on in the project. They narrowed down the target to it's a somewhat young demographic that we're really trying to target specifically. So we like to give them names and faces so that they're easier to identify with. You may know people who fit these same demographics by different names, but for us, this is Camilla, who is 29. She's engaged to be married, and so her eyes are peeled for any sort of visual inspiration, knowing that she's planning something important in her life. And her hunger and thirst for new experiences and activities extends beyond just that stage in her life. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Then we also have Cameron, who is a younger newlywed. He and his wife live in an apartment. They may live in the area. And he is really active socially with other couples in his social circle. And they're looking forward to having kids. So that's the sort of time in the life of this target audience that we're trying to nail down. They socialize a lot with their friends. They might go do karaoke at Willie's Karaoke Lounge. They are often seen at events at the complex. But what's most important about them is that they're stimulated by new experiences, by art, by experiencing new culture. And so they're the ones who are going to be most likely to be our Midvale audience. So right now, when they are planning a night out, when they're thinking about going to dinner, when they're looking at events for the weekend, they're not thinking about Midvale. That's where their brains are now. What we want them to think is that Midvale Main Street is going to engage all their senses at once, and unlike any other place in Utah, with great food, a beautiful setting, fresh thinking, and great vibes. That's what we're trying to communicate with our marketing. And why should they believe it? The answer is all of you in the room and all the work that you're doing. All the investments that you're putting into the area, into new businesses that also fuel the arts and culture district there on Midvale, Maine. It's the real stuff that's happening to improve the area. So we distill all of that down to a single statement. What are we actually trying to say? And what we come up with is the limitless possibilities of Midvale, Maine will enliven you. So when you come to Midvale, anything could happen. So we're ready to jump into some designs. Any questions about the background or the foundational work that was done leading up to the designs that we're about to share?
Not seeing any.
Great. We love any and all input, so feel free to jump in. So the design that we put out is how people are going to recognize the area, and we want them to feel something when they see it. It's our opportunity to really excite them about the possibilities that are available to them at Midvale, Maine. There are some criteria that we always look for when we are developing a logo, and this helps us to evaluate, is it good? Will it be effective? Will it do the job that we need it to do? And so we want to share some of this with you so that you're understanding that sort of framework that we're using as we design and evaluate. So authenticity, does it align with the rest of our brand? Does it feel right for Midvale, Maine? Does it feel authentic? Feeling, does it resonate with our audience? Do they feel the right things? Vision, will it hold up over the long haul? You know, we are designing it here in 2023. Will this design still have strength and impact 5 and 10 years down the line? And then recognizability, is it memorable enough that people will be able to recall it in their brains, even when we're not showing them an ad or when they're looking at the logo itself? And finally, cut through. Does it measure up against other logos in that it will stand apart, that it doesn't look like other things? And so this one is an interesting one because this is where it can become a little uncomfortable for design to be new and fresh. And I think for an arts district, our goal is to make it feel new and fresh. Our impulse is often to gravitate toward things that are familiar. And so this is where we do a sort of push and pull in marketing to make it familiar enough that we are attracted to it, but fresh enough that it feels exciting. So we do have one quick caveat here, and that's that these designs are not final. These are the early iterations of each of the designs, and we're going to share 3 of them with you. They are really fine-tuned, they're quite polished, but there's still some minor tweaks to be made just to get it to its final perfection. Those small changes are largely imperceptible to most people. So it's a caveat that we share because those changes may happen, but ultimately you probably wouldn't register them once they come to be. So without further ado, I think we jump into the first design. And this one we are calling Mid-Valley Peaks. I'm going to turn it over to Adam to give you a break from my voice.
Yes. All right. So this first option is it's definitely pulled from the location of Midvale, where Midvale's name came from, and it's kind of tied to the original logo that you guys see in front of you right now on the projector screen. So Midvale is definitely located right smack dab, excuse me, in the middle of the valley between both mountain ranges. And yeah, if you want to go to that next slide, we can. So this is pulling from a lot of elemental shapes, which can be found like triangles, squares, circles, et cetera, can be found throughout like almost all forms of arts and culture, from drawing the human form to architecture to abstract art to patterns and symbols used in almost every culture in almost every country throughout the world. So they definitely are, they're the root of a lot of things that we hold dear to us in the art and culture community now. So that without further ado, that would bring us to this guy. So this logo is very, very simple in nature. It's representing the mountains, the valley, and Main Street, Midvale. We chose two bold colors that would stand out against pretty much anything we put it against, whether that's a white background or a very busy picture. Bold, impactful, you're going to see it no matter what you do. And then in this example here, this is kind of the full pattern that we used to kind of pull the logo out, where you have the meeting of the sky and the mountains in the valley in between. And like I was saying, when you isolate two segments of the pattern, you get the modern double M logo, which is a very similar vein to the one that is currently used by Midvale, but just elevated up into a modern look. On the left is the one that you've already seen. On the right is the knocked out version for anything that we might need against a super dark background or something. It's basically just the inversion of that logo. Here, as I was saying, it's on a busier background. All of the versions of this logo still pop off. You can see them pretty much effortlessly. You have a vertical version, you have a horizontal version. There's the simplified versions on the left, on the bottom and the top. Yeah.
The photo in this instance is our stunt city. That is a downtown Main Street against some mountains elsewhere. And we look forward to finding some beautiful photography of Main Street Midvale as well.
And here we're bringing in other versions of elemental shapes that we can bring in and combine into patterns and use as photo overlays and photo treatments with varying levels of opacity, just to kind of give the photos a little bit more life and feeling surrounding that logo. Here we have the simplified version that would be used in like smaller places where we couldn't necessarily use that full logo because of the type being too small. And on the right, we've put it into a place like if it's some sort of event happening in Midvale that isn't necessarily using Midvale branding, but it's still being featured on like a poster or a print collateral piece, just to illustrate what that might look like. And then once again, full color logo, white logo, punchy as ever.
We really like that this one feels very elemental. Like Adam said, it comes back to the most basic building blocks of art pattern. And the bold colors, like he said, I think are a great representation of a creative area in Midvale. Which brings us to design number 2, which we're calling Say It With Symbols. Similar to those other shapes, from tartans to tapa, artisans have used patterns to tell stories and to as symbolism to give meaning to groups, to the world around them, to anything in their day-to-day lives. So our goal here was to create our own pattern that could be ownable by Midvale, Maine, and giving it its own symbolism and meaning. So some of the bits that we pulled in from Midvale, Maine, the flat roof architecture of the buildings down the street, the idea of the intersection of Midvale, Maine being a series of intersections, the interwoven tapestry of cultures being another idea that we've intertwined. Mountains and valleys, also reflecting the letter M, felt like a natural symbol here. And then the here arrow, possibilities are found here. So bringing these all together, they were integrated into a single mark, which becomes this interwoven graphic with Midvale, Maine Arts and Culture District sitting underneath, all of them very structured and geometric. The fill color itself reflects both the sort of chill of the snow-capped mountains nearby and the blue of the sky. We really thought that that was a nice call out to the natural environment. And you can see when we highlight some of the shapes here, if it wasn't already obvious to you that there's an M intertwined into this design, we just make that obvious here on this slide. And then when that shape is rotated, duplicated, and repeated in various combinations, it offers a whole slew of different patterns, all built from that single unit, which we think could be both beautiful, really recognizable, and make for strong visuals. We could see them in out-of-home signage, in wayfinding, in posters and promotional materials. We think that this is really beautiful. And then we started to play with how we would look at it in different color combinations. If we need to change the orientation to fit something more vertical or horizontal, something smaller, you can see how these different combinations use that same design in different orientations. Played with, again, some different color combinations here. And as you saw in the previous direction, when Midvale, Maine becomes a knockout white and becomes a signature at the bottom of a poster, like on the right, how it can integrate with an event or in promoting something going on there in the city. We always like to look at it against photography. So we're looking at our stunt city here again with our Midvale, Maine logo sitting on top of it. And then in promotional materials, whether that's for an event or for a local business, this one also integrates that pattern as a lead into the logo mark itself. So we see some really nice versatility in this one, in that pattern, having the pattern live on its own. The sign of a great logo is when you can remove the name of the brand from it and still recognize the brand. And that we really love that this pattern could do that. And that brings us to the third design that we developed, which we're calling dynamic expression with exclamation points at the beginning and the end. So one of the beautiful parts about diverse cultures is that looking at the same object, each of those cultures can represent it or talk about it or find a different word for the exact same thing. And that sort of creativity is what helps fuel art and is really at the core of this particular design. So in this version, we are using a dynamic typography for introducing Midvale, Maine Arts and Culture District. Nothing feels 100% settled. Everything feels like it's on the move, it's growing, it's expanding, it's shrinking. And we think that that is really exciting as we're trying to communicate the potential of anything happening. We also love that it captures the idea of expression in all of its forms. And then I think what's probably most noticeable about this is how we've treated the letter I's. There's a lowercase I and an exclamation point in place of the I. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But I wanted to show you how that sort of dynamic approach to this typography and to the typesetting could come to life in different ways. So you've got black and white on the left with things always in motion. On the top one, things are a bit square. On the bottom one, the heights of letters have fluctuated up and down. On the right, we've got these really exciting stacks as we break Midvale, Maine into individual lines. Or we simplify it in just to the MM for Midvale, Maine, and using those exclamation points again to emphasize the exciting things that are going on there in the area. Also in a bright array of colors. So the lowercase I and the exclamation point, I think some people will read it that way. For us, what we loved about this design is that it actually represents how exclamation points are used in the Spanish language, which is a great nod to the culture that is there in Midvale, Maine, and the surrounding area. So in Spanish, I imagine you're probably familiar, but when you're using an exclamation point, it exists at the beginning and the end of a sentence. At the end of the sentence, it looks just like an exclamation point in English. And at the beginning of the sentence, it's inverted, so it's upside down. So, where some people will just read it as letter I and an exclamation point, we love that it is an inclusive graphic element for our Latin friends in the neighborhood. So that shape, as you see on the left, is also dynamic. That can also have the same potential for movement as the rest of the alphabet that you're looking at on the right. This really dynamic typography. We love the idea that this can also be used for headlines when we're announcing an event. It doesn't have to be just contained in the logo itself. This whole alphabet could be applied to any use for the area and the city. We looked at it in multiple colors, each one giving its own emotion, and you can imagine the different events that happen in Midvale adopting a different color combination. Specifically, as we're thinking about Cinco de Mayo coming up in May, this one could be super, super fun to apply. So when we invert it into single colors, white or one other color, this is what it looks like. Even in a single color, it still has a lot of excitement and a lot of motion and energy. And like the previous version, we love the idea that this could also be used as a recognizable pattern. And by stacking and rotating different versions of this logo, we think we can accomplish that in a really impactful way. And then the various stacks, seeing it sign off on a poster, seeing it against our stunt city. It feels very much like an arts and culture mark. If we're promoting a local business or event, it still feels very appropriate and looks great on this photography. And then one last look at the slew there. So in total, we have the three directions that we were developing and shared with the committee. And then ultimately, our recommendation is the third of the three. We see a lot of strength in all three designs for the reasons that we've spoken about. But for us, we think that the third has the most versatility for the uses that we anticipate the city will have and that the area will have. And we're most excited by the potential for applying it to all of those uses. And with that, we'll open it up to the rest of you. We'll hand it back to you.
I'll just start by saying, definitely appreciate the third option the most. Is to Wade's comments. When I saw this, it screamed theater at me. And knowing that we do have two theaters right here off of our main street, to me, this was the most dynamic and kind of exciting logo. But that's me personally. If there are any thoughts or questions for Fluid.
I mean, I don't know a lot about art in that. I just know what I like to look at. So, for me, I really liked the second one. I liked how versatile it was with all the different shapes and that. I can definitely see how the branding for the third one might be a little bit easier with the logo. I do like that. But just on like an initial response, it would be the second one for me.
The Arts Council, we asked their opinion and they like this one the most out of all of them, and I agree with them as well. Of this third one, I don't know if I like the main logo as much, but a lot of the variations, especially just the M and the exclamation points, I think are cool and can be done pretty well. I mean, we're just trying to highlight the words Midvale and Maine as much as possible, so I like it. So I guess there might be some room for improvement on it, but out of all of them, I like this one the most.
The only issue I have with the third one is that it's very, very theater-y. And that's great. I mean, that is one component of the Arts and Culture District, but it certainly isn't the only element. Like I see this and I think of Mamma Mia, which is funny because it's MM also, but it's like a very Mamma Mia logo. I personally like the first one the best because I think the first one can be on like lampposts, like those kind of banners very easily. This one, not so much. I think honestly, the one that you have up now, number 3, the first little iteration there on the far left is the best of the 3. I think the one that's next to it in blue, I'm a little bit colorblind, so bear with me. The blue one, I think, is a little difficult to read, just the way that it's laid out. And then the MM at the bottom there in pink, I'm thinking. I just don't like that one at all, to be honest. So of the 3 that were presented, option number 1 was the one I liked every single iteration of it.
Quinn.
Oh, man. You've ever sat through like a presentation where you were like, I am out of my element? This is it for me. It all started, I looked through the program and I like, this is the one I like. And then Wade got up and gave public comment. And the one they disliked the most was the one I liked the most. And the one I disliked the most was one the Arts Council liked. And I was like, I definitely am not the arts person. So I can see us. I mean, I'm glad you made the comment because I was trying to be more open-minded of like, yeah, that is more artsy. So if that's what we're going for, I get it. My concern with the third one would be, is it, does it stand the test of time? How long would it last, right? Is it just more modern for now? I do like it though, if we're trying to go with promoting the arts, that is more, artsy. So I like that. Other than that, the one that I came into the meeting liking is like Heidi, because we're boring, non-artsy people, right? So I probably should have asked my kids what they like, because they would have had a better idea in the arts. So
Cody,
I like number 2.
what is like the life cycle of a logo like this, right? Like, obviously we could use it forever, but what should we expect? 10 years, like a 10-year lifespan where no matter which one we pick, it gets sort of, needs a rebrand or whatever, or is it 50 years, or what's the plan for something like this?
It's a great question. Also out of my element on that, I would refer to Laura or Rich or Shannon on that. Sorry.
Pretty much anybody beside me.
Because it is a good question.
Don't defer to me.
Date too quickly, and then we have to, do it again, or if it's like, yeah, it'll date in 5 or 6 years, but that's sort of, the life cycle, like we'll always call it that, but maybe for the arts and culture, branding, that's what we want. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I can tell you that there was a lot of discussion, debate, back and forth with the RDA staff. We eventually leaned towards option 3. I went up and down Main Street and talked to the business owners, showed them the 3 different logos, and they were actually split between options 2 and 3 equally. What I did was I said, what's your number 1 choice? What's your number 2 choice? And what's your number 3 choice?
Voted them.
I ranked choice voted them. And
Do we have to pay more for that?
Yeah.
and the logo with the lowest score, like golf, won, and it was tied between 2 and 3. But as far as the lifespan, how much longevity it has, I'd refer to the experts on that question.
Well,
Yeah.
if we're making the decision knowing, hey, this is a 5 to 10 year, and then we're going to rebrand it again. I'm okay with option 3 because it is, it's kind of current. I think we're trying to make a splash, get people here, right? And I think that one can do it. So as long as we're conscious in making that choice, I like it. Although I think you have to defer to the experts to say, how often is it that you kind of look at a rebrand on something like this?
Yeah, that's about the timeline that you expect it to stay current, about 5 to 10 years. And then from there, the adjustments that you make are relatively minor, but there are things to sort of update them and help them feel related to the original mark, but refreshed. It's a little bit of a facelift at that time. And just for context, this approach to design, this type approach, we've seen it in effect over decades. I mean, this is a regular tool for graphic designers, like award-winning designers, that gives them the flexibility to do exactly what you're talking about. Make sure that there's room for it to update and stay fresh.
When I came in, I liked number 2, okay? I just like the readability. It just punches out what we're really saying. But after hearing Wade and all the rest of you, I really like 3. It's fun. It points out the arts. So I'm good for either one of them, but right now I'll probably vote 3.
I think there's another takeaway here. Like the only public comment we have had in the RDA meeting in like a decade helped convince like 2 or 3 of us of what we should go with. So well done, Wade.
And I'm not the graphics that they're looking for. I'm in the over the 70.
You're still
You're not-
good, Paul.
You're not
For me, it's like-
Cameron, the
for me, it's like,
newlywed.
let's look at it and see what it says. But having said that, I really do like 3.
Yeah.
Well, we do need a motion. If anyone would like to make it.
Actually, you are the demographic, because I remember years ago when you talked about going on a trip with your wife in some art district, holding her hand down the street. And I said, when we have Midvale, Maine, where you're coming and it's artsy, I said, that's when we've arrived. So you are the,
So
we're
that's
getting
very
there.
true. When San Francisco, we went into all the art dealers. And so we're just married, not very long. Okay. We walk in and the guy says, well, are you collectors? And I says, yes. And my wife looks at me like, what are you doing? He says, who do you collect? And I say, Dyson Originals. Dyson was my next door neighbor that drew paintings. So, or just pencil drawings. And she looked at me, she's about laughed her head off. But it was fun. We had a great time in San Francisco, just going to the arts and, we couldn't afford anything, but we had fun doing it.
Let's make a motion.
Wait, if you come up to the microphone.
Can we make a motion that the arts building can never use blue and white as a light color?
I say he's coming to clarify that he does like Utah.
I'm gonna make that.
Hey, we've had red and white up plenty. So I just wanted to clarify, when you asked if we were all in unanimous, no, the general consensus was number 3. But I think I said someone like number 1 best, and I went back and looked at my notes. They like number 2 best, which fits in with what some of you were saying, but the general consensus was 3. So I just wanted to clarify that in case this is recorded and any of the board members are watching and they're like, hey, you didn't get my vote right. So I wanted to clarify that, but that was it.
And they're on there.
Thank you, Wade.
Until we get a motion, I would ask Paul to keep telling us fun stories, but otherwise.
I enjoyed
How do we make
That
this
was a
motion?
good
Do we
one.
just say option 3 or?
Yeah, that's the motion. Do it. Option 3.
It includes the number 3, but.
Okay, Mayor, I move to adopt resolution number 2023-02 RDA and select logo number 3 for future branding and marketing efforts for the Main Street area.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Rory, will you call roll?
Yes, Board Member Brown,
Yes.
Gettle,
Yes.
Glover,
Aye.
Sperry,
Aye.
and Robinson. Aye.
Okay, that carries. With that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor, please say aye.
Yes.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.